Okay, so I think we will start today's session. So, Namaste, everyone. Today is our 19th session of Manav Vyavhar Darshan English reading, and Spencer has will continue from the last. And today, Estelle will also join in with chapter number 5. So, quite looking forward to today's session. So, um, so welcome, Spencer. Uh, like to give the background before you start?
Sure. Yeah, we'll just pick up from where we left off here. So here we are, once again, as you said, 19th session, going good, and
Mhm.
happy to be part of it. I just want to again express my gratitude towards Babaji for uh, providing this and for everyone who's participating, and Rakeshji for providing the opportunity for this. It's been really wonderful so far. Um, So yeah, we're on chapter 5. We're towards the middle of chapter 5, which is non-delusion itself is restfulness. So if I had to give a little quick summary up to where we've reached is that um, entire humankind is aspiring for restfulness. Restfulness is a state of self, state of human being, um, where we are living with our full potential, where we have understanding, where we have knowledge, wisdom, science, and we're living that way uh, in the family, in the society, and this is a state of rest. So it's not a state of non-activity or silence or like just bodily relaxation, but it's really a different state. So Babaji says that restfulness is resolution prosperity, which is the human aim. Um, and then we'll continue to explore that in more detail and explaining um, how it can be achieved. It can be achieved by living with humanness and through the study process. So yeah, he continues to detail what is restfulness and how it is achieved and how does it look like. So in human being. So we'll continue where we left off, which was page the very last point on page 105 here.
Yeah, I have shared it.
Okay. Okay. Here we go. So behavioral harmony, sociality, and a system for humanness-based study are essential for intellectual resolution. Behavioral harmony, conduct based on the policy aligned with justice. Behavioral cohesiveness is imperative for intellectual resolution. Cohesiveness in itself is complementariness or harmony in knowledge, wisdom, and science. So I think the sense that I get for this next little section going forward and what Babaji's saying here is that, if we want intellectual resolution, if we want to be restful, it's not just an individual effort or an individual activity. It really requires a social harmony and a social system. It requires education, which is just education inherently means it's coming, from somewhere. It's not just uh, one's own process. So a system of humanness, a culture of humanness, sociality, behavioral harmony, these things are very important for intellectual resolution. In other words, it's through our behavior with others, it's through following and taking advice and learning from others that we can actually attain intellectual resolution ourselves. And I think on a very simple level, if you see any sort of education that we learn, whether it's skills or even the intellect that we develop today, a confused, restless intellect is also a result of what we've got from our culture and society. Um, so the opposite would be true, that if we want a resolved and harmonious intellect, then that will also be a result of the society, um, or it's necessary for developing that. So the next line here, the policies and customs for the security and protection of humanness are necessary for intellectual and behavioral balance. Security. Sustainment of the status of awakening itself is security. Humanness itself is the existence status of awakened human tradition. Culture, civilization, legislation, and systems are mutually complementary aspects for the security of humanness. The protection of humanness is not possible without the comprehensive study of these four aspects. Because acts and tendencies of mistakes and crimes contribute to inhumanness, humans are at the level of inhumanness prior to attaining completeness of humanness. Humanness has been explained earlier in a comparative manner, encompassing humane nature, perspective, and propensity. Humans need to make endeavors to establish, nurture, and multiply these. And I'll read just the last point in the next page here. All study-based endeavors to protect humanness undertaken by a humane society or system, while fulfilling every relationship and association, are referred to as sanskar, and its conduct, publicity, and exhibition aspect are referred to as culture. Okay, so just going back up here, it says, the policies and customs for security and protection of humanness are necessary for intellectual and behavioral balance. So, the way I've understood policies and customs, um, at least right now, to me, it seems a little bit similar. I can just draw from the way we currently use the words. Maybe I'm wrong there, but whereas customs is something which we see in the day to day, it's customary when uh, when we start a day at school that we sing the anthem, or when someone comes over that we provide them something to eat, or when someone gets married, you do it in a certain way. So I've understood customs to be similar, and policies is when you take those customs, you take the thought, the intellectual aspect, and you've actually create some more like a legislation or rules or some principles to follow. Um, so obviously right now our customs and policies are different around the world. We'll have different customs in India and just different customs in Canada and different policies. And so they're not universal or based on universal laws and principles. Um, but really, he's saying that we need policies and customs for protection of humanness. So humanness is the thing which needs to be preserved, which needs to be carried by our culture, by our customs, and by our um, policies. It's humane behavior. And so uh, then the next line continues that by saying security. So sustainment of the awakening status itself is security. So I thought to myself, when we talk about security today, usually we're talking about security cameras and fences and locks and safes. And we're really very much concerned about securing our material things. And we think that, and our body and our wealth, and we think that we can do that with this sort of these mechanisms, with the cameras. But still, we live in fear, still, we live with uncertainty. And really, the real thing that we need to secure is understanding or awakening. Um, And once that is secured meaning it can sustain, we've we've got it, and we've made it safe. And how do we make it safe? We make it safe by putting it in the culture, in the tradition. When something's in the tradition, then, from generation to generation, it can continue, through education. It keeps getting passed along. So that itself makes it secure. Um, and when understanding is secure, then all the security cameras and the fences and the gates, that also, the need for those things can also be eliminated, because with humanness, there's a sense of fearlessness. When everyone's living with resolution prosperity, there's a sense of fearlessness. So by securing the intellect, by securing your understanding in the tradition, and that gets passed on and creates a culture, then um, there's fearlessness as well. So this whole definition of security switches. Right now we're just trying to secure the material things, but by securing the understanding, material things also get secured actually. So yeah, I found that very nice definition. Um, and so the understanding is what we need to make sure it's secured. So humanness itself is the existent status of awakened human tradition. Culture, civilization, legislation, and systems are mutually complementary aspects for security of humanness. Yeah. So, and the protection of humanness is not possible without study of these four aspects. Yeah. So, like I was saying, um, by instilling humanness in the culture, in the civilization, in the legislation, in the systems, this is how it becomes secure. This is how um, it is able to sustain. Because, like, even if you see today, in a rough way, like if here we celebrate Christmas, or in India you'll celebrate Diwali, like these festivals have been passed on by generation to generation. In a way, you can see that they're kind of like secured by the culture, it's like being held on by the culture and the civilization, where each year, even though, after 100 years, none of the same people are there who were celebrating 100 years ago. It's a whole new generation and whole new generation. So the people keep coming and going, but the tradition continues. It's become like secured in the culture. So if we want humanness to be secured, we need to instill it in the culture, and that is really where we get so many things, including our own personal tendencies. Like, um, yeah. So let's keep going. So um, we need to, yeah, secure humanness, which is the understanding based living. So this next point on the next page here, all study-based endeavors to protect humanness undertaken by a humane society or system while fulfilling every relationship and association referred to as sanskar. Its conduct, publicity, and exhibition aspect are referred to as culture. So sanskar obviously is a uh, significant word, I would guess. It seems in India here, I don't have any previous association when we say sanskar. So, but it doesn't mean I've fully grasped the concept. So when I look through all the literature, I'm trying to understand sanskar. What it comes down to me when I read this is that basically all the acceptances for completeness um, is referred to as sanskar. So, or uh, human being, yeah, with knowledge, wisdom, and science. So knowledge of coexistence, wisdom of how to live and what their place is in this coexistence, and science or its implementation. So with this complete picture, this is the entire content of sanskar. It's like all the knowledge, wisdom, science needed to uh, live to one's full potential, or like I said, acceptances for completeness. It's kind of like in one word, maybe you could say just understanding is sanskar. So, um, so this definition here, all the study-based endeavors to protect humanness while fulfilling, by any is sanskar. So this and the public is I refer to as culture. So again, this one is not so clear for me, but it seems like similar to what I was saying previously, um, is that the understanding is carried through the tradition. And if you see, for example, I like this example, maybe you and I live in Canada, you're living in India or elsewhere in the world, anywhere in the world. Maybe the math that we learn in school is the same. We learn our multiplication, division, this and that. But apart from that, we've also developed like an entire worldview and intellectual way of thinking and perspectives and this entire what we call like culture. So I've got like a different set of beliefs, and elsewhere in the world, I have a different set of beliefs. So, and when you see human beings, it's not like we're learning the math differently. Those things are the same, but we're really adopting so much of our education comes from the culture, comes from the perspectives and beliefs of the society in which we're raised. So, and that is even a bigger part of our formative education as compared to math. Math, we all learn the same. Biology, we all learn the same. But what's different is those beliefs, those celebrations that come from the society. Uh, so we need to establish sanskar or understanding in the tradition um, in order for it to be secured. And actually, there's a line that I really like when I was just looking. It's at the very last page of chapter 6. It's on page 120, and I'll just quickly read it. It says, the last line, it just says, Sanskar is the gift of awakened tradition. So I really like that sanskar is the gift. It's being born in awakened tradition. This is really what the best gift you can get is of understanding. Currently, we're born and uh, answers are not seen to be there, and then people develop some animosity towards each other, towards the society. Um, but if there is understanding, then that will be a great gift. So going back, okay, so just continuing reading. Culture is nurtured by civilization. Civilization is nurtured by legislation, humane code of conduct. Legislation is nurtured by systems, and systems are nurtured by culture. These are interdependent and interrelated aspects. The basic objective of the structure of human society is to foster fearlessness and awakening. Only three causes are observed for all the fear in humans: fear of natural events, fear of animals, and fear of inhumanness in humans. So again, Babaji is mentioning these four words: culture, civilization, legislation, and systems, and how they are all interrelated and nurturing one another. So if I try to interpret this, I would say that, okay, you have culture, which is largely the way of thinking um, and the customs that are performed by people. And when many people are doing that, then it looks like a civilization. And civilization is nurtured by the legislation. So you can create some policy which will be a guiding principle, some written documents or some code of conduct. You see how Babaji says code of conduct, um, which will guide the civilization and guide the culture. And then lastly, you have systems. So based on this legislation, the systems are education, production, health, exchange. These are the systems which enforce and nurture the legislation. And ultimately, the systems then are nurtured by culture. So it's really all interconnected. The way of thinking goes all the way to the complete evidencing, and the evidencing is influencing the thinking, and culture and systems are just boosting up one another. You have culture, you can see more on the smaller scale, systems on the larger scale, and the systems then influence the culture. So a family living in a humane system are contributing to the humane system, and they're also being nurtured by the humane system. And and lastly, he talks about fearlessness. Um, and Babaji he talks about fearlessness and like many more times here, so I won't go too much into it, but he's saying that these are the fear in humans, these three. And elsewhere in the book, he says, if we want to overcome these fear, um, we need to we need to find out how to do that. In animals, in order to overcome fear, they form herds, they form groups. And this impression is still there in human beings. So in order to overcome fear, we come together, we make family, we make culture, we build a wall, and we try to find security by being together. But in doing so, we haven't united the entire humankind. So we're actually propagating this fear. We found some security by being together in a small group, but we still have fear of the larger group or other groups. We're still living in this herd mentality, which we've carried on from animals. So, in order to fully eliminate this fear, the mechanism to do that is understanding, one, and then living with resolution and prosperity. And this is the uniqueness of human being, and this is what will ensure a fearless state um, for all humans. So with that, I wrap up my reading. I'm going to pass it on to Estelle, who's prepared the remainder of the chapter and chapter 6 also. So for the next two sessions, Estelle is going to take it on. So with that, I'll pass it over to her.
Welcome,
Yeah.
welcome,
Rakesh,
Estelle.
maybe
Thank
also
you
I'll
so
just
much.
If you don't mind, just to clarify Sanskar also, I in a whichever brief or long way, you can just add some points on that.
Yeah, I think you said it quite rightly that these are acceptances for completeness. And if you look at it, the way that we have DNA for the body, they have sanskar for the jivan. It is the way the body actually carries its form from one generation to the other by having it the imprint in the DNA. In the same way, Jivan carries its understanding as sanskar. It is the acceptances towards completeness. And there is a point when it becomes complete. That is called sanskar purnta, or the completeness of sanskar. That basically leads to the ability for realization in coexistence. Or thereafter, one becomes capable of evidencing that is to impart that understanding to others in an effective manner. So, so, so yes. So sanskar, if you look at it, uh, the prior form of sanskar is imagination, is that to have the ideas and thoughts. So you'll probably first get it in the form of ideas that that this is the way that we can do it. But ideas, when they crystallize, they become acceptance. And the acceptance that become indelible, that is basically called as sanskar. That becomes the basis of all our behavior when we call that as sanskar. So this basically gets collected in the course of time as we actually understand. And there is a point of its completion that is uh, that is also being proposed here. So I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Welcome, Estelle.
Thank you. So Hi, my name is Estelle, for those who don't know me, because I don't know who's there, but yeah, I'm Spencer's wife. And I'm gonna continue reading from where he left off. Okay,
Welcome, welcome.
thank you. The development and decline determine the stage of awakening. The stage of awakening determines hope. Hope determines attraction and retraction. Attraction and retraction determine attachment. Attachment determines helplessness. Helplessness determines impetus. Impetus determines action. Action determines consequence. Consequence determines problem and resolution. Problem and resolution determine movement towards decline or development, awakening, which becomes evident as humanness, inhumanness, and higher humanness. Okay, so I'm starting not with like an easy sentence. It's one of these cycles, but I spent some time trying to make sense of it, and I discussed also. So I think I got, something out of it, and I'll try to share what I got. So development and decline determine the stage of awakening. So basically in existence, there's direction, and everything is developing towards basically human awakening. And then there's decline, which like mostly is in human, if you're not not going towards awakening, then there will be decline. So that determines actually the stage of awakening. Which stage of awakening can be four, I think, basically unawakened or partially awakened, half awakened, completely awakened. And so based on that stage of awakening, it will determine hope. So hope is overall for happiness. In animals, it will be for living, but in humans, it's living with happiness. But in a deluded state, hope for happiness can be pretty confused. Like we can think it can be through the senses, even just survival. Whereas in awakened, the hope will still be for happiness, but we'll have more clarity on how to get it, and like through understanding, not through the senses or the body. So we can see here that based on your stage of awakening, your hope will be also different. And hope determines attraction and retraction. So now based on like what you're hoping for, that's what you're going to be attracted to, whether it be like people or activities, dedication, whatever you're hoping for, that's what will make you attracted towards certain things or person. Attraction and retraction determines attachment. So now we're getting attracted to certain things, certain people, and by being attracted and reattracted all the time, then we get attached to it. And attach means like giving higher value to something lower. Overall, just being attached to more like the sentient aspect. Insentient, sorry. Insentient meaning all the material things, but also the body, my body, or like someone else's body. Like I get attached to someone, but it's more because actually the relationship is more for the body, with the body. So overall attachment is, more towards the insentient aspect. So determine attachment. Attachment determines helplessness. So from being attached, now we become helpless. Helpless means now we're not even able to like make our a different decision. Like we kind of lose the power. We feel like so attracted, so compelled to these things that like even if sometimes we can see, oh, it's not the best, or I don't want that, like we cannot help it. Helplessness, like we really feel attracted, pulled by it. We lose the power. Helplessness determines impetus. So this helplessness is actually like it's not a pleasant feeling. It doesn't bring satisfaction. It actually can bring suffering. It's like I'm expecting something, but I'm going for something, and it doesn't bring satisfaction, but I still feel like a very strong pull for it. So that can cause the suffering actually. But the suffering is also what can bring the impetus to like get out of it. Like, no, I still want satisfaction. Like from the beginning, we hope for happiness. So that will determine your impetus to try to actually, try something else, or we need to get out of this suffering. So that will determine action. I think that's, that pretty naturally comes, like, now I'm not satisfied with this, so I get motivated and I will try something else. Action determines consequence. Based on what I do, then I'll get some result. And result can be problem or resolution. So, and then problem and resolution will determine again the movement toward decline or development. Either I'm going towards awakening. So if it's going towards resolution, then towards awakening, towards problem, then decline. So we can see here that, like, actually we can get stuck in this loop of, like, problem. Like, if I don't know about awakening, even if I don't have an environment, I haven't met anyone who can share about this, then I can be stuck in this loop of, like, okay, I feel helplessness, I feel suffering, but then I will just try something else, but within the same realm of, like, materialism or spiritualism, and I just keep getting stuck, keep getting more toward problem, and that will, like, reinforce the attachment. And so that can be, like, seen as a negative loop. But then once you actually have an inspiration and a direction for awakening, then this loop can become positive. Now, actually, my actions are going towards more awakening, and slowly it can reinforce the determination towards awakening, and slowly you can actually see the result towards more resolution and more awakening. And again, slowly, like, from unawakened to partially awakened, half awakened, until completely awakened. And once we're awakened, then there's always hope for happiness, but we know exactly what to do. So the actions will always lead to resolution. So then this loop is always in a positive manner. And that becomes evident as humanness, inhumanness, and higher humanness. Yeah. So I think that's a pretty good start. That was a nice paragraph, a bit dense, but I think once we break it down, it actually makes sense, and it really shows the way we that we can go towards resolution or not. The awakening of humans is only for intellectual resolution and material prosperity. So we want awakening, and awakening is for what? Only intellectual resolution, material prosperity, which is basically the human aim, and nothing less, nothing more than that. That's what awakening is for, and that's what will happen once there's awakening. That's pretty straightforward, I think. Intellectual resolution and material prosperity is affirmed by holistic view with differentiation of causal, subtle, and gross. The knowledge gained through the senses of sound, touch, sight, taste, and smell is referred to as the gross understanding. The knowledge of man, vritti, chitta, and relative powers is referred to as the subtle understanding. The knowledge of the absolute energy, the Atma which realizes it, and the Buddhi that attains enlightenment is referred to as the causal understanding. So awakening is for resolution and prosperity, and now resolution and prosperity is affirmed by a holistic view. And holistic view can be differentiated in three: causal, subtle, and gross, and is describing. So gross would be any knowledge that, like, we can get through the senses, so through the body. So we'll see more like the shape of things and the effect of things that we can actually see, taste, smell. That's one part of knowledge. But then there's the knowledge, there's subtle knowledge, subtle understanding that happens more in the thought, man, vritti, and chit. So that's like already deeper. These things you cannot see with your senses. You have to, like, start to analyze it, understand it in a different way. And then finally, there's causal understanding, which is of absolute energy. And that only happens in Atma, and then and Buddhi becomes aware of it. And that's the causal understanding. So all these things are necessary for resolution and prosperity. So that's why holistic view. It's using all our abilities, from the the body also has a role, but also in Jivan there's a role that's what needs to be awakened right now. Like right now we have a good knowledge from the senses, but we don't have at all from like Atma and Buddhi, and then because of that, then in Manvriti Chit, it's not aligned properly, like Spencer was explaining very well in the previous sessions. Okay, continuing on. Manifestations of all units of nature are in the form of activities saturated in omnipotence. The entire activities are differentiated as form or word. All the activities are observed in humans in the form of exuberance, inspiration, invigoration, impetus, impulse, and experimentation. So basically, any unit of nature is in the form of activity. So everything we see, we give a name, it's actually an activity. And all activities are saturated in omnipotence in space. And so we can call them as, there's like form and word, and he will explain just a bit later on. And now actually the activities that we see in humans, they can all be seen as exuberance, inspiration, invigoration, impetus, impulse, experimentation. And he's gonna, is defining all these words just after. But basically any activity that humans do, overall we'll see, but there's a direction to it. Either we're inspired for like awakening, either we're not, and then we go more towards problem. So any activity we do will have these two directions, but he's explaining more just now. The form refers to each unit's inherent attributes, intrinsic nature, and dharma, while word refers to the act of indicating the form and its inherent meaning. Indicating through word is communication. In other words, to understand and impart understanding in mutuality. This is the utility of word. So here is the explaining the difference between form and word. So any entity is form and word. So form will be actually all the shape attributes, intrinsic nature, and dharma. That's actually the form of each unit. And then word is like the activity of pointing out, okay, now this activity, I name it so I can actually like indicate that this activity, and that is the word and its inherent meaning. It's like the word should indicate actually the meaning of the activity. And that's what it's communication. Communication really happens once we can indicate the word with its understanding, with the meaning, which is like basically understanding. So the words are helpful for to understand. Like if I just if there's no language, you cannot understand, and also you cannot make other understand. And I think Spencer was mentioning that, yeah, like compared to the tradition, the spiritual tradition, like understand was not communicable through words. And here actually the word is very important to understand and to impart the understanding. And that's actually the usefulness of word. That's language becomes useful once we actually use it for understanding. Okay, so then there's all the definitions of exuberance, inspiration. So I'll just read them all and then go back to it. Exuberance. The inherent motivation towards awakening is referred to as exuberance. Inspiration. The motivation or impetus toward mutual betterment, awakening, upon coming together, is referred to as inspiration. Mutual betterment. The movement towards attaining higher value and long-lasting result or permanence and awakening is referred to as mutual betterment. Retrogression, the movement towards mutual distortion, decline, upon coming together, is referred to as retrogression. Mutual distortion, the movement towards lower value or short-lasting result and decline, is referred to as mutual distortion. I'll actually stop here for now. So, exuberance. The inherent motivation towards awakening is referred to as exuberance, and inspiration, the motivation or impetus towards mutual betterment upon coming together, is referred to as inspiration. So the way I understand it right now, it's like inspiration you cannot receive just from nowhere. You have to receive from coming together. And it means, you know, coming in contact with like awakened person or someone who's more awakened. Because we can clearly see that, like, if I'm just like, I was born in France, I live in France, if I never come in contact with like awakened person or more awakened, I won't have naturally an inspiration to actually do and move towards awakening. I'm not even aware of it. So it happens in mutuality. You have to meet someone to get inspiration. And from that inspiration, you have actually exuberance. Now you actually, you're motivating toward you're motivated towards awakening. But it cannot happen just, you know, otherwise it's this idea that like we all have it within us and we just need to like find it. No, you need someone else actually to receive some inspiration. And then obviously, then the exuberance is happening within you and from you, but the inspiration is received in mutuality. And mutual betterment, the movement towards attaining higher value and long-lasting result, and awakening is referred to as mutual betterment. Yeah, so that's because we are inspired for mutual betterment, which is movement towards awakening and lasting result, like we want that to sustain. And that happens again, in togetherness. But now the opposite can happen. We can come together and like, just like I was discussing in the beginning, we get attracted to people, we get attracted to certain things, so we come together, but it can lead to more decline and retrogression, not like the opposite of mutual betterment. So lower value, so like less awakening, we're just going towards more animalistic living, which is like in the development production, it's lower, you know, from animal, there's an awakened, and then we have to go to the next, not keep going back. So we have to look higher. But again, if you don't meet anyone who has the more knowledge than you, then you'll just keep I don't know if you can call that inspiration then, but you'll keep inspiring each other for lower value. Can you get me some water, please? Okay. Then impetus. The spin gained through Sanyog is referred to as impetus. Impulse. The speed gained to fulfill a need is referred to as impulse. Experimentation. The speed gained through endeavor is referred to as experimentation. So these ones are not as clear, but in general, I would say whatever, then from your inspiration, you'll do things. So whether like to fulfill a need or like through endeavor, and from that itself, I guess you'll gain some speed and some further inspiration. I don't know if Rakesh, if you want to add something onto these words.
Yeah, I think this is fine. I guess these are the activities that happen as a result of uh, uh, this exuberance and inspiration. You clearly described very well that exuberance, that you actually have it inherent, and inspiration is that you get from someone else. So both the things are there. In their combination, we make progress. And in this progress, these are the three activities that are observed: impetus, impulse, and experimentation. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks. Okay, word refers to a letter or group of letters used to indicate an activity. A word or group of words used to indicate the meaning of a word is referred to as definition, and the essence of definition is value. Value is in the form of an entity in existence, all values are in the form of entities in coexistence. So it's explaining a little bit more precisely what's a word. So again, it's still to indicate an activity, but it's a letter or a group of letters. And then from word, we create definitions, and that's to like indicate the meaning of the word. And actually, what are we really trying to convey? It's the value. So everything, all the activities are in the form of value. That's what we actually get. That's what we try to understand. And value itself is an entity in existence. All values are in entities. So they are actual entities that we're trying to understand the values. They're not just unclear, undefined, vague. It's precise, and that's what we're trying to understand. A word serves as the name for a particular activity or entity, while definition elucidates the essence of that word and activity. Thereafter, it takes the form of language. The words that indicate a specific activity are referred to as meaningful, and the words opposite to this are referred to as meaningless. So again, we use words and definition to understand the essence of things, of activities. And a word that can indicate a specific activity, like very precisely, that will be meaningful. Otherwise, it's meaningless. Like one example that we're trying to use to make sense of this, like let's say today, at least in Western culture, we'll use all the words like love and gratitude and care and stuff like that. But it's very vague, you know, if you're trying to describe what is care, then you'll actually use a different word. It's not pinpointing to like a specific activity, which he was saying all values are in the form of entity. Like it's not something vague. There's an entity and we need to see that entity. And see not doesn't mean with our sense, it means like we have to understand it. And so the word that's like really pinpointing to that to help you see that entity, that's a meaningful word. Otherwise, word can be the same, but if it's not pointing at a reality, then it is meaningless. The essentiality of an activity is determined by studying its form, attributes, intrinsic nature, and dharma through inspection, examination, and survey. So now, how do we understand the essentiality? Studying every activity's form, attributes, intrinsic nature, and dharma. So, and he will explain a little bit more. I think it's been explained already in the beginning of the book, but he's just explaining it again. The form of a unit is determined by its shape, volume, and density. The attributes of a unit are differentiated as generative, degenerative, and mediative. The intrinsic nature of a unit is determined based on utilization of its attributes. The utilization of every attribute is solely for creation, sustainment, or dissolution. Therefore, intrinsic nature of every unit is creation-oriented, sustainment-oriented, or dissolution-oriented. This activity is either toward development or decline. Okay, so yeah, form determined by its shape, volume, and density. Attributes, generative, degenerative, mediative, and intrinsic nature is like based on how these attributes are used, which overall can be used for creation, sustainment, or dissolution. And then this activity is either towards development or decline, from my understanding, all like matter, plant, animal, even if there's like dissolution or, yeah, both creation and dissolution will be for development. Like it's not because a plant decomposes that now it's decline. No, actually it's gonna enrich everything. So the lower is complementary to the higher. So that is going to development. I think decline is only happening in human being when they don't live with humanness. Then they can go towards decline. And then that which is one's innateness is its dharma. The dharma of the material order is to exist, The dharma of the biological order is to grow and exist. The dharma of the animal order is hope of living along with growing and existing. And the dharma of the knowledge order is hope of living with happiness, along with growing and existing. So I think this has been shared already, and I think it's pretty straightforward that each order has its own innateness and its own dharma. And knowledge order is living with happiness, and is gonna like develop on that point quite a bit coming. The endeavor that aligns with innateness is exuberance or invigoration, while the endeavor that goes against it is retrogression. Exuberance leads to resolution, while retrogression gives rise to problems. So endeavor that aligns with innateness, I think he's specifically talking about humans here. Because everything else in nature is naturally aligned with their innateness. Only in humans there's like imagination and free will, so they can actually go against their innateness. But the endeavors that align with innateness, that is exuberance, invigoration, and that will lead to resolution. And the opposite will be retrogression and giving rise to problem. So we actually have the choice. I think a lot of this chapter is showing very clearly two direction, and there's no middle of like oh, I'm neutral. No, either there's decline or problem, either there's development and awakening and resolution, and we have to like choose a direction and really go towards the good direction. The inspiration towards resolution is referred to as conducive, and helplessness towards problem is referred to as inconducive. So I think similar idea that it's conducive if we're inspired towards resolution. If we're helpless again towards problem, then that's inconducive. Resolve, desire, thought, and hope inspired by Atma are self-driven and manifest as exuberance. In the absence of cohesiveness in the sentient aspect, the desire, hope, and thought are externally driven and manifest as retrogression. So that's more, I think, explaining very precisely where it's actually happening. So when the activities are driven, resolve, desire, thought, and hope are inspired by Atma, meaning with realization, then it's like the inspiration is coming from inside. And then that manifests as exuberance. But if there's no cohesiveness, so like man is going towards body, while like buddhi and atma are waiting to actually, everyone is like, all the activities are waiting to actually be inspired from atma, but it's coming more from like, the input is coming more from the body, the pressure is coming more from the body. That's what it means by externally driven. It's not like now I don't have this realization and an understanding, and that inspires all the activities. I'm more driven by what's happening outside, and like I'm looking for happiness in the senses and in the body, and that's like now putting pressure on all the activities, like yeah. So that's externally driven, and that's retrogression. That's not going in the good direction. Self-driveness gives rise to restfulness, while external driveness, caused by attachment to the insentient aspect, gives rise to the friction of effort. So we're going back to restfulness. So basically, how do we get to restfulness? We need to be self-driven, meaning from Atma, meaning from realization. And what gives rise to effort? It's external driveness. And is describing friction of effort. Friction of effort in humans is when the accomplishment falls short of hope. And resolution is when the accomplishment exceeds the hope. And I think Spencer was already describing this, that there's effort when we're hoping for something and we don't get the result. But there's restfulness when we actually even get more than what we were hoping for. And I think it's linking back to, the first section I was reading, that we always have hope for something, we do something, do we get the result or not? Like as long as we don't get the result, that that difference will be effort. And once we actually get what we wanted from our actions, then that will be effortlessness. Okay, happiness is the dharma of humans. Resolution equal happiness, problems equal unhappiness. So now we're trying to live aligning with our dharma, which is happiness, and happiness comes from resolution. Living with problems, and that's unhappiness. So now how do we go on? How do we live aligning with this dharma of happiness? The observance of duties and adherence to customs and policies by humans that nurture happiness itself is moral policy. So we have to like observe the duty, so whatever needs to be done, whether in the family, in the society, to participate basically in a humane system, we have to follow that. And adhere to customs and policies that nurture happiness. So Spencer was already describing the custom, like the way we do things, and policy, the thought behind it. And they all need to nurture happiness. And that becomes the moral policy. Behavior that aligns with both social laws and natural laws is referred to as the custom for nurturing. And thoughts and conduct that align with intellectual laws are referred to as the policy of behavior. So a little bit more explanation on custom. So the custom that are nurturing, they're aligning with social laws and natural. So we can see it's more like actually what we do, either human to human or human to nature, how it's expressed. That would be the custom, and they need to be nurturing. And thoughts and conduct that align with intellectual laws are referred to as the policy of behavior. So now there's the thought and how it will come into my conduct, into human conduct. When they when they are aligned with intellectual law, then that becomes the policy. While adherence to custom is seen to be happening, the adherence to policy is both seen to be happening and not happening also. So first, I was not very clear what is meant by that, but yeah, after reading a bit more and discussing, the way I think I make sense is that we can be, like today, we can be following customs, like, you know, outside we can present very well, like follow what is polite, what is good to do with like, oh, even in terms of conduct, okay, maybe we're like faithful in marriage, but doesn't mean that the thought behind it is aligned with existence. Like maybe it's the understanding is not properly there, but still, you know, we want to present well and we want to do good. So in the doing, we're able to follow. But in the thought, it might actually not be aligned for the purpose. It might be just out of pressure, out of fear, out of temptation. But from outside, it can look like, yeah, we are following, you know, the laws. So we really need both. Also, the intellectual laws needs to be there. The absence of ethical thought is the cause of exploitation, which eventually leads to suffering of self and others. So now, if we don't have the thought that's like ethical, means like that's protecting human, like awakening and humanness. So if we're not following, if we don't have that thought, then somewhere exploitation will happen. And this exploitation leads to suffering of ourselves and also of others. So the thought aspect is very, very important. Humans cultivate and develop their unique talents at each level by accepting and fulfilling the duties assigned by families, societies, and systems with dedication, lawfulness, and truthfulness. This leads to successes with family, society, and system. However, failing to adhere to these duties nullifies their existing talents and successes also. So I was trying to understand like what's our unique talents. And so looking at it, I found that actually talents can be related to like the way we will express the understanding. So actually the way we live, like physical, verbal, mental, the way we express the understanding, then the way we communicate it. So like the way we are actually able to like explain what we understand to others. And then there's exhibition, which is like, again, explaining, but presenting it in a more artistic way. And then it will be also be connected to the skills. So for material prosperity, basically, we will need different skills and be proficient at it. And that becomes also a talent. So we can see here that there can be unique talents, meaning everyone will have different talents. Someone can be very good at like explaining, at be a very good speaker. Someone can have skills in so many different areas. So that's unique. But they need to be like for the duties in the family and society, in the system. So it has to be for participating. And that leads to success. Otherwise, today, so many people have so many unique talents. There's so many good speakers, but they can be like a dictator or like making big speeches for like business, how to make profit, or you can be the best skilled at something. But if it's not to participate in the system, then that's like nullifies. Like your talent is there, but it's not useful. It's not used for the proper for universal good. So success is not only in attaining these talents, it's more like what you're using these talents for. So first it was a bit puzzling, but I think I made sense of it, and it's beautiful. The influence that one person has on another depends on the need and condition of their mutuality. The advent of need and condition is according to awakening progression. So we're seeing, we can get inspired from someone. But awakened person has the potential of like inspiring many unawakened. But the influence that any person has on another person will be depending on the need and condition of their mutuality. So you have to like recognize the relationship, and you have to define a need, like what do we want to get out of this relationship. Someone could meet an awakened person, but if the need is not there, if you don't recognize the person as like someone who's higher than you, then you might not get anything. So it needs to be defined, and that also is based on like the awakening progression. The development and orderliness of a unit depends on its motion, effort, and pressure of its mutuality, by which integration, disintegration, and result takes place. So now it will describe how any unit, the development and orderliness depends on its motion, effort, and the pressure of its mutuality. So like other coming in contact with other, by which integration, disintegration, and result take place. So I think that's in any unit from material to human. There will be a motion and effort, and then there will also be other units, and this unit will come together or break apart, and that will create a result. And is describing it just next a bit more. Integration and disintegration differentiates constitution. Constitution differentiates development. Development differentiates potential. Potential differentiates medium. Medium differentiates order. Order differentiates need. Need differentiates impulsion. Impulsion differentiates progress. Progress differentiates consequence. Consequence differentiates union and separation. Union and separation differentiates integration and disintegration and resolution and problem. So integration, disintegration, differentiates constitution. So that happens from the material order. There's like particle come together, then that becomes atom. Atom comes together, create molecule, and form So different, I think it's it's pretty clear integration, disintegration that creates the shape, actually, the constitution. And the shape will define the development. So development, again, goes from material to like the four orders, basically. So just based on the shape, there will be a development. And also we can see that actually from the first unit, like first atom of hydrogen, it's already complementary to whatever is to come next. Like it's gonna be useful to create water, which will be useful for plant and everything. So there's a mutuality which shows that there's a development, there's a direction. If something was not mutual, like was not complementary, then there's no development. But because each step is mutual to the next, complementary to the next, then there's a direction and a development. And that's based on the shape, the constitution. Development differentiates potential. So each entity will have a different potential. And I think, all the constitution, they go until basically complete constitution will be given. And then there is like different potential, let's say in an animal, and different animal will have a different potential of what they can do, and humans also have a different potential of what they can do. And that differentiates the medium, which medium is saying after is the body. So based on the potential, there will be a different medium, and the fully developed body is human body, and that's a medium that can actually receive an evidence understanding. Medium differentiates order. So now based on the body, you either you be animal order or human order. Order differentiates need. So you'll have different need based on like your order. And based on that need, you'll have a different impulsion. Different impulsion to do what you need to do. Impulsion differentiates progress. So again, based on like how we see, like if an awakened, then we'll have a different progress, and progress differentiate consequence. Whatever we do, we try to progress, we'll get consequence. And that differentiates union and separation. And in human beings, there's union and separation. I think separation is a bit more, I think in the rest of nature, there's union and separation happened. But I think in human being, there should be union and not separation. We should not you cannot separate, like we're all related. So the separation is actually not even possible, but it's more in the mind that we become separated. And union and separation differentiates integration and disintegration. So not just like in matter, there was particles, atom, molecules coming together. In humans, we'll have individuals coming together, creating family, and families together, creating like all the tiers of the system. And this can, again, leads toward resolution or problem. We can come together as a family, we can come together as nations, we can create NATO, we can form something that's for war. But we can, in the opposite, we can come together for resolution. So again, in human, there's both direction, whereas nature is going towards the good direction, and now like the missing piece is really the human and the understanding. Okay, I just will read a bit more. Human body is available as medium to Jivan for its awakening. So human body, Jivan needs a fully developed brain for Jivan to be able to awaken, and that's the human body, and it's available for Jivan. Okay. The universe, consisting of 4 orders, has been described earlier. Among these, the dharma of material order is existence, while the dharma of knowledge order is happiness. It has been proven through observation, examination, and survey that at no point of time there is lack of existence. The imagination of existence without matter is not substantiated. Additionally, since matter has no boundary, it doesn't prove to be all-pervasive. So I think what he's trying to say here is that there's never a lack of existence. Existence is always there. And the imagination of existence without matter is not there. Like we cannot actually see, if there was no matter, then we could not even, there would not be nothing to be seen that something exists. And but matter has boundaries, so matter cannot be all pervasive. And actually he continues to describe on a little bit, I'll continue reading, I think it makes it a little bit more clear. Happiness is a sentient aspect. Thought without buddhi and the activity of buddhi without knowledge is not feasible. Happiness is the dharma of humans, who are the finest creations of the universe. Even when humans are taken to places devoid of matter, dharma of happiness is not lacking in them. Therefore, knowledge, as the foundation of happiness, proves to be universal, because that which is not there cannot be attained. Knowledge becomes evident in human tradition through the knower in conjunction with the object of knowledge. All humans are capable of becoming knowers. In this way, matter and knowledge are not absent at any point of time, and knowledge is not absent in any place and time. Knowledge is inherent and present everywhere. Therefore, knowledge remains to be there, but its revelation happens by awakened humans. So, yeah, I think he's explaining basically the coexistence, like matter saturated in space, and how okay, happiness is the dharma of humans. And even if you take humans where a place where there's no matter, still they'll want happiness. So it shows that like it's a sentient act, it's not something physical. Because it's something like we want continuity of happiness. And so to have something continuous, it needs to be something that's continuously available. If we want continuous happiness, but then happiness is supposed to happen in material, material is not, there's places where there's no matter and matter is going through changes. It's not a continuous, like unchanging thing. So it's trying to show that like actually happiness is continuous. And how do we get happiness? It's through knowledge. And so knowledge has to be always available. Because yeah, it cannot be attained if it's not there. And there's places where there's no matter. So we want happiness all the time. So it means, and we need knowledge to attain happiness. So it means that knowledge has to be there all the time. So it's proving that knowledge is actually like all pervasive and they're everywhere all the time available. But knowledge becomes evident in human tradition. So again, you need something from nature, which in this case it's human, and in the tradition, knowledge itself is not enough. You need that's where it shows coexistence. There's like, okay, the knowledge space, but there's also nature and human that can evidence the understanding, and both need to be there to evidence it. Yeah, so I don't know if I was able to explain very well, but I think that's the conclusion that matter always exists, but there's some places where there's matter, some places where there's no matter, but anytime there's always matter. And knowledge is there every time, every place, all the time. And the revelation happens by awakened humans. So knowledge is visible through actually awakened humans in the tradition. Okay, maybe I can stop here for today. I think that's where I was planning, and there's a little bit of time for questions, answers.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it was very well done, Estelle. So you had to deal with a number of those cyclic ones, and you
Yeah.
had done those well indeed. Yeah. So actually, as Spencer was basically telling, the idea of these cyclic ones is to actually put all the things in one canvas to see whether all the ideas
Yeah.
are there, and whether we have actually got the overall picture or not,
Mhm.
right? So sometimes it becomes a little difficult to see all the connections, but that's all right. But important thing is that we get a general idea of how the things are fitting into the bigger picture. So
Yeah.
I will now open the floor for any questions for Estelle. Estelle was a little shy in presenting, but I think you have done a fine job.
Thank you.
So any encouragement for her would be most welcome. Buddy, Renu Didi, you want to say something? I think people are on mute. Mhm. Rishta, you want to say something?
I enjoyed listening in today, and I wanted to thank Estelle for that. I think I'm going to also listen once again because there was so many of the very cyclical anubhutis in this section, and I want to pay attention again and listen to exactly how you were explaining it again. I think this was a very interesting section, and you did it so well. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
Oh, you're also muted, Rakesh.
Uh, Didi, you want to say something? You need to
Yeah,
unmute.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so hi Estelle. So it was very well done, and you again presented very well. I think both you and Spencer like put it very nicely, very simply. So very well done. Yeah, congratulations and thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. So we will then stop here today. I think we had a very good session today, and hope to see you again on Tuesday. Yeah, for completing this chapter. Thank you so much, Esther and Spencer. Both of you have
Thank you.
doing a fine job. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for listening.
Yeah.
It was really nice.
Thank you. Thank you, Estelle. Thanks, Spencer.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Good night.
Namaste.
Thank you. Good
Okay,
night.
namaste.